Yeah, I'm an entomologist at University of Hawaii in Seatar, and been there for a while. And I've worked in macadamia nuts and various tropical fruits over the years. These days, more coffee, really, and actually some pasture pests these days. But I thought what I'd talk about today is, rather than any specific research as such, is looking at reduced risk pesticides in IPM, and specifically here for common pests of tropical fruits, the whole diversity of tropical fruits. These things come up a lot. You might just want to advance that because it's got a whole bunch of weird things. If you just push like the button another twice, it'll be good. There we go. So it won't hold things up. And another. So I'm going to talk a little bit about invasive insects and then go through a number of those different low-risk pesticides that are available out there. A lot of them are organic listed, if you're interested in those options. And then just talk a little bit about how they work differently. A lot of people always say, oh, spray neem, it'll kill everything, which is not true. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those things, and maybe just a bit of food for thought when you're choosing those products, which ones may be better for particular situations. My email address was there fleetingly. If anyone has questions, you can contact me. Ken has my email address and other ways to contact me.
Free cats. And
you get a free cat with every question. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at, just briefly, the invasive pests and IPM over here. You probably all know Hawaii is one of the world's hotspots for invasive species. We have something like 50 times the invasion rate that any other part of the United States has. At least the continental US is about 50 times less invasive. I'm sorry. I see that. Oh, back. Sorry. And
you go like this, and I couldn't, you know.
I understand.
I know you're not Italian.
It's the Danish in me. Waving swords around. So yeah, we have these things that arrive every year. We have new pests. And the thing is that you might have a nicely established IPM program in your crop, and then suddenly something new arrives, like papaya mealybug, illustrated there, glassy wing sharpshooter, which pleasantly we could take care of with biological control, accidentally, I might add. At that, yeah, glassy wing sharpshooter parasitoid arrived here on its own, probably on some plants that were imported, and it actually suppressed it completely, unlike in Tahiti, where that thing was decimating tourism because of its impacts in towns. And then we have other interesting things like the rami moth up there, which is a caterpillar that feeds on mamaki and can be quite devastating, right? So if you're growing mamaki for tea, you never had to spray anything until now. Now you probably have to apply something to control that thing if it's out of hand. It makes the tea go away. That's the thing. Yeah. You can spray BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. BT. The question is, what you're talking about? Rami moth, yeah, on mamaki. Yeah. You can use BT, Bacillus thuringiensis products, things like dipel or thuricide. I will talk about that in a bit. I'll try and remember to mention it when it comes up on the screen, so you can see the name. Okay. Cool. Okay. So.
What?
You want me to just hurry up? Is that the thing? Okay. So you probably all know, right? IPM, integrated pest management, is when we combine mutually compatible ways to control pests in ways that are hopefully environmentally friendly. We have biocontrol, my personal favorite, which can work remarkably well when it works. It doesn't always work. We have physical control, like trapping, for example, cultural control, growing crops that are not susceptible, etc., etc. Maybe one of the most important parts of IPM. But then we also have chemical control, using insecticides. And a lot of those, when you say insecticides, people often think of things that are really nasty and bad and have severe health implications and environmental implications. But there are lots and lots these days of products that are reduced risk. They're no longer those things that will kill you or give you myasthenia gravis and so on. Next slide, please, Ken. Thanks. If we just stay there for a bit, yeah. If we look at older insecticides, those things, like when I was younger, these are higher risk products, right? We had things back then like organophosphates, which were nerve poisons. They could actually get into your nervous system, they could into your blood system, they could cause things like myasthenia gravis in humans. They had really widespread impacts on beneficial insects and so on. Very non-selective in the most cases. We had to have whole training sessions about organophosphate poisoning back in the day. Joy. We had things, pyrethroids, for example, which do have very low impacts on mammals, but they're really bad on aquatic organisms, for example. And today, I don't think there are any organophosphates. There may be one or two still on the market, but they've been removed from the market by EPA delabeling as part of the Food Quality Protection Act over the last 20-some years. And the few pyrethroids that are still out there are all restricted use products in Hawaii, at least because of their impacts on water-dwelling organisms. So we have these other things that don't pose those risks anymore. Next slide, please. Okay, there we go. We have these things, reduced risk pesticides. There are a bunch of them of reduced risk products that are synthetic chemicals. I'm not going to talk a lot about those. I'm going to talk about things that are of botanical origin or are very ambivalent environmentally and to beneficials and to people. So we have these new products. They typically have much narrower host ranges than those old products that have been phased out. And a very short residual period. They're not like pyrethroids that will remain on the plant and remain active for 10 days, for example. They'll have a short effect, like a day or two, perhaps. So we have things in here like botanical insecticides, like neem, which I'm pretty sure everyone's heard about. This includes a bunch of oils, horticultural oils, insecticidal soaps, and then a bunch of biological products. And I'm going to go through each of those kind of quickly. Yes, please. So let's look at the first one, neem. And I know neem is very popular. I always see people saying, oh, you should spray neem for this. I use neem for everything. It's just like it will cure everything. And in a way, it's kind of true. In India, where it's originally from, it is used for all kinds of things, from being in toothpaste to being an antiseptic, a contraceptive, I think, and for killing insects. But it doesn't kill all insects. It does not, sadly. It's a real interesting tree. It's from Southeast Asia. You may have seen them. Some people grow them around here. They're invasive in some parts of the world, not here. Let's not go into the history of it. It's an interesting thing, and how it was known for years, centuries, I guess, by people from Southeast Asia that it had all these properties, and eventually people from Europe discovered it, that it had these properties, and started commercializing it probably 40 years ago. So there's a number of ways to use it. You can either extract the oil as a bulk product, you can purify the oil, and you can extract things from the oil. And each of them have different impacts on different groups of pests. You can crush the seeds, for example, and make a cake as well, by the way, right? Good for different things. It's not a fix-all. It doesn't kill every single pest. You can address a lot of different kinds of pests with neem quite effectively, but not everything. So one should just be careful when using it. The most active compound in this thing against insects is a chemical called azadirachtin, which is concentrated with the seeds, like I have in the picture at the back there. Those big green seeds. People will collect them and crush them, and you can extract either a whole blend of the chemicals, or you can take azadirachtin out of it and concentrate that, for instance, and use that as an insecticide. Okay, this thing's pretty much environmentally safe. You can eat it. You can put it on your body. It's not going to kill you. It doesn't kill non-targets. It kills a lot of different kinds of insects and some diseases even. Excellent. Thank you. Right. The reason I have these pictures up in these slides is not a marketing effort. It's just to illustrate that there are different things sold in different ways. Okay. Oh. Right. They work against different things, right? So the product that you see up on the top left over there, azotin, is actually purified azadirachtin, right? I think it's a 5% solution of azadirachtin, that active ingredient, and that will very actively kill certain insects. It will interfere with their development, for example, right? Certain things like leaf miners and certain caterpillars and things like aphids and thrips, it will. The products on the right and the ones at the bottom are neem oil. They're not purified azadirachtin. They have some azadirachtin in, but only a very small concentration. And they won't kill the same things that azadirachtin extract will. They probably have an anti-fetid effect, so they can deter certain things, right? There's some Lepidoptera, caterpillars, that will not feed on plants that have been sprayed with neem. Aphids, for example, can be deterred. The oil, it can also be useful in that it can capture virus particles from the mouthparts of aphids that are vectoring non-persistent viruses, like papaya ring spot virus. Sorry. So there are those uses, right? It's very effective at those things. It doesn't work for beetles. If people are telling you that you can spray neem and it's going to protect your trees from shuttle borers, it's not. There's not much that protects your trees from shuttle borers, honestly. All right. The main function of azadirachtin, it can be toxic, but it also can interfere with the growth of insects. So it's an insect growth regulator. So it actually prevents the insects from molting, which they have to do between the different stages of development to grow. So they just grow themselves to death, right, inside of their exoskeleton. Some caterpillars, thrips, aphids, are affected that way. Neem is also remarkable in that it's not going to decimate your beneficial insects. It's not going to kill your pollinators. It's not going to kill the biocontrol agents that you might have out there in your environment. For the largest part, it's very safe. And it's also useful against some things like nematodes. If you take the neem cake and you put that into plants, it's absorbed, and it actually does control nematodes. And some fungal pathogens, which I don't know a whole lot about, but it does. All right, let's look at insecticidal soaps. I know one of Ken's favorites. It is, yes. The question is, if in neem extract is azadirachtin the antifungal agent? Okay, and or bacterial. So, I think the oil is actually the antifungal. I don't think it's the azadirachtin. I don't think azadirachtin influences fungi. I don't think it influences bacteria at all, honestly. Okay, soaps. So these things are really good. If you have soft-bodied insects, if you have thrips, if you have aphids, baby-scale insects, not the grown-ups. Some mealybugs, the ones that are not necessarily covered in piles and piles of wax, you can control them with soaps and mites. These things, it's basically a detergent that you're spraying, right? So it gets onto the insect or mite, and it breaks down the outer layers of their cells, and it prevents them from retaining moisture. They desiccate. They just die of desiccation, basically. Or their growth is influenced by their cell membranes being destroyed. It's super important to get really good coverage with this. You have to get this onto the insect, and you have to pretty much cover the insect with it for it to work properly, right? So if you're using soaps, you've got to get it on the underside of leaves, mostly, because that's where most of these things are. And you have to make sure that you get good coverage underneath as well. It only works on contact. It'll not kill an insect to walk over an insecticidal soap on a leaf. It doesn't make any difference to them. It basically has no residue, so it dries up pretty quickly. That's why you should spray it early evening, early morning, right? So it doesn't just evaporate during the day. And it's also important to know what life stage you're targeting. If you're trying to kill scale insects or mealybugs with this, it's going to kill the juveniles, what we call crawlers, right? The small moving stages that don't yet have a protective layer around the body. That's the one to target with a soap, for example. And next slide, please. Ken, if you still... Yeah. Oh. Well, okay, so the question is, if you can see mites, are those the beneficial mites, the predatory ones? That may be true. It might depend on how good your eyes are, to an extent. When I was much younger, I could see red spider mites. I can't anymore. Yeah, no, but to a large extent, you're right. So the phytoceid mites, the predatory mites, are larger. They also move around a lot more actively. So if you see bigger mites that move around actively, those are probably beneficial mites. Yeah, so don't kill them. The fact that they move around so much actually protects them a lot from the soaps and oils, just by the way. I would have, if I saw enough predatory mites around, I wouldn't spray it on that crop, no. All right, insecticidal soaps, very similar to the oils. They just do a different thing. They actually smother the insect. Again, you need really good coverage, right? You have to get this all over it, cover up the whole insect. Insects breathe through the spiracles on the side of their body. They don't have noses. So it's got to be all over the show to prevent them breathing. And it smothers them to death. You often have to repeat these things. Okay? If you're controlling scale insects with soaps and oils, the adults will produce perhaps 2 generations that you have to treat, right? So you might treat 1 generation of crawlers, and another will appear a week or 2 later from the same adults. You'll need to spray on them again, unfortunately. Again, be careful. Okay, if you're spraying these things during high temperature times, high humidity, young plants and so on, you can get leaf burn, like in that image over there. So it's good to just avoid those hottest times, high humidity times, and which you can do mostly. Yeah, Ken. Okay, oils. You know, I just thought the last slide was about oils. No, it's all good. Insecticidal oils, very similar to soaps, right? A lot of the things that one can say about soaps, one can say about oils as well. I was a little ahead of myself there. There are a whole bunch of these things, these horticultural oils. They used to be used as not diapause, what do you call it in plants when they go to sleep for the winter? It's dormant, thank you, very good. Excellent. Dormant. It's a dormancy breaking treatment that they used to apply to deciduous crops. And they discovered that when you sprayed your dormant oil, like Volk oil and so on, that it would reduce numbers of certain insects. And so the insecticidal application of these products became a thing, a big thing. There are a whole bunch of them out there. And a couple of names up there, Sunspray, Volk. One you get here, I think, a lot is Safer Green, which I've used quite a bit. Again, they smother the insect, right? They're not actually toxic per se. Again, they work well on soft-bodied insects, so things like scale insects, some eggs, perhaps. You're saying powdery mildew? Yes, it does say powdery mildew down there. Yeah, they actually do control powdery mildew. If you put them on at the right time. I know nothing about powdery mildew, but it says it does, so I'm just, yeah. Like neem oil does too, yeah. Okay. Oh, some of them, really interestingly, can reduce spread of non-persistent viruses, right? They have this thing like shown over there called stylet oil. Again, as the aphid probes, and the aphids that are transmitting non-persistent viruses have the virus on their mouthparts. So when they probe the plant, they lose the virus into that oil, and thus reducing spread. And it's actually a thing that's registered like that to be used for that application. Okay, here's a cool product. It's a thing called spinosad. It consists of spinosyn chemicals, and there's a number of them, A and D, primarily in this one. It's an intriguing thing, this, right? I like rum a lot. It's one of those things that I drink on field trips a lot when I'm out there, particularly in Africa, doing the funny things I do. I was always so happy because they found the bacteria that produces spinosins in an old rum distillery. Look at that, in Jamaica, of course. It's a broken down old place like that. There were lots of sugars around in the old stores and so on, and they had these nutcase microbiologists going around looking for chemicals that microbes produce, and found this thing. I can't remember the name. It's a bacterium. It produces these chemicals. These chemicals turned out to be super useful insecticides. I'm really proud of rum production for giving the world that. Yeah. It's neat. It works for a whole bunch of things. Some of the worst insect pests we have, thrips, for example. You can control most thrips with spinosins, unless they're resistant. Some leaf miners, depending what you're growing, that might be an issue. Spider mites, even ants. It's formulated into some ant baits, and even fruit flies in a bait. Yes.
Does it have a very good shelf life?
The question is if it has a very good shelf life. It depends what you call very good. Compared to DDT, no. But no, I can't remember what the shelf life is. I think it might be in the region of 24 months, but I'm not 100% sure. There's someone else who will know.
In the bottle, I mean.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm trying to think what it said on the last bottle that I ever bought, and I can't remember that. It's not as long as the pyrethroid, for instance, or okay, it's limited, but not overnight or anything. Yeah? It's not alive, so you don't have to be too careful with it. Like the next thing I'll talk about. This is the one that you can use for controlling rammy moth on mamaki if you have issues with that. These products called They're made from Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria, formulated as insecticides, okay? And they're sold under different trade names, like dipel, thuricide, etc. Okay, so this is a living bacteria? It's, yes?
Has BT's effectiveness been reduced because Monsanto started
So the question is whether BT insecticides' effectiveness have been reduced because of Monsanto specifically putting it into BT engineered corn. No, in a nutshell. So there's actually been, it took a hell of a long time for the target insects to develop resistance to Monsanto's BT corn. Remarkably, it surprised everyone, I think. And as soon as that started happening, they started changing the actual gene that they use, I believe. So no, it hasn't actually. It has not made a difference. What we may have seen making more of a difference in terms of resistance is the use of BTs against diamondback moth on crucifers, where they became hugely resistant in a way. So, yes? The question is, if you use BT close to a naked forest, did I say naked forest? Native forest. Are you going to be impacting native Lepidoptera and having cascade effects? Well, it depends how far it's going. So I mean, if you're applying it using good safety procedures, as one should when you're making insecticide applications without wind and so on, you shouldn't get drift into the forest. I mean, if there's some drift into the forest, it might penetrate a little way. There might be a little impact, but I don't think it'll be severe. You know, they're spraying BT products in the Alakai swamp for mosquito control. And, well, it's a different one. It's Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, which kills flies. And the dose that they apply for mosquitoes is low enough that it has not impacted native aquatic flies. So there are things like that, but I don't think if you're spraying BT that it's going to penetrate the forest very far, and I don't think that the impacts will be too dramatic. It doesn't last very long. It dies soon after you spray it. Sure. Okay, so you can purchase this as an insecticide and spray it. It's either living bacteria that you buy in this container. It doesn't last long. You have to be careful of that. Or it's the purified proteins that you can take and spray as an insecticide. And it can be super effective. They're very specific to certain groups. You get one that attacks Lepidoptera, caterpillars. There's one that it kills beetles. There's one that kills flies, and so forth. And very effective. You have to apply them when the insects are young so that they ingest them. And it basically paralyzes their stomach and causes them to die. That's why you have to do it at just the right time. Okay. Oh, right. It is very safe. In terms of non-target impact, right? It'll only kill Lepidoptera if it's BT Kostaki, for instance. And its longevity in the environment is short if it's not protected from UV and desiccation. Yes.
Is there a way to keep a bottle of BT still good? Because I've got a big bottle that I bought for some money. It's not bad.
Yeah. So the question is, can you prolong the shelf life of BT products once you bought them? I think if you're buying the live bacteria, it's really difficult because it's live bacteria. If you have the purified proteins, I believe you can keep that a long time, especially if you cool it, I think. But yeah, I think with the live bacteria, you've got to use it by the expiry date. Sorry. All right. Almost there. So there are a couple of other pathogenic microbes that are out there. Insect pathogenic fungi, or entomopathogens, as we like to call them to sound sciencey. Here's a famous one, Bavaria bassiana, which is used extensively now for coffee berry borer management here. It's a fungus that you can make up into an insecticide again, the living spores that you spray out onto these insects. It kills a broad range of things. You can kill beetles. These are palm weevils from Middle East that are controlled with Bavaria. I put that there just to show the symptoms. You can see the white fungus growing out of the insect, right? That's very typical Bavaria symptoms. So you can hit a broad range of targets with these, anything from coffee berry borer through aphids, scale insects, and so on, right? We have labels for a couple of products here, Botanigard and Microtrol, I think it's called, the organic version. And you can use them on a fair range of crops actually over here. We do have varieties that occur here, Bavaria bassiana. You might find them just arriving by themselves as what we call epizootic outbreaks on certain insects. The commercial products last longer. Once you spray them, they actually work better. It's been shown. The question is whether they tried this on Queensland beetle or coconut. You mean coconut rhinoceros beetle? Yeah, coconut rhinoceros beetle definitely. Yeah, and it does work. It does kill it. Yeah, the problem is getting it on the larvae. I don't think it kills the adults. I believe what they did was they treated the early larval stages in mulch. The mulch is too dry for it to work well, and so on. I mean, it has potential. It's just the way of applying it, I think, that needs to be looked at. The question is, because I cleverly put over there that it works at moderate elevations. Yeah, that's kind of a non-specific statement, isn't it? What is the sweet spot? So we ran trials with this going from sea level in coffee for CBB, and at sea level it did not work, but just above sea level, which was hard. It didn't work particularly well. We got maybe 10% mortality from it. Anything from, I'm going to have to think in meters, like 230 meters above sea level to, I think we went up to 700. It worked particularly well.
And
Dry environments it doesn't enjoy, yeah, because it's a living fungus and it needs moisture to sporulate. Okay, this is the last slide. This is some work that we've done just recently, looking at using a repellent, which is not really an insecticide per se. It doesn't kill the insects, but it deters them from your crop. And right now we're in the final stages of labeling this product called Splat Verb for a special, SPLAT stands for Specialized Pheromone and Lure Application Technology, by the way. And it splats out little blobs of the stuff. It's being registered with HDAB now as for a special local needs label for use in preventing rod vectors, which are beetles. And then we're also getting it registered for use in macadamia nut for tropical nut borer, and also against coffee berry borer. And it will work. We know verbenone works against black twig borer, for example, which some of you may have problems with. You can see some of the results we have on those graphs. Over time, percentage of these are coffee beans infested by CBB. The little open circles are the plants that we treated with verbenone, and the closed ones are without verbenone. You can see we can reduce the damage by about 50% consistently, different years, and throughout a year. So there's a fair amount of optimism that this will help at least reduce the initial infestations by these by bark beetles in a bunch of crops. It's an interesting thing. It's actually what we call a deaggregation pheromone. When bark beetles, this was developed for use in pines on the mainland, on the continental US. Bark beetles there attack the trees, and at some point you need enough bark beetles on the tree to overcome the defenses of the tree. Then there comes a point where we have enough of them, and the ones that are there want to say, okay, we've won, go somewhere else, don't compete with us, so then they release verbenone, which then deters them very effectively. And it seems to work across bark beetles as a group, not only the pine ones. Oh, yeah, sorry, the question, what does CBB stand for? Coffee berry borer, yes, sorry. The question is, it's high in rosemary. Oh, I see what you mean. Could you apply rosemary oil? Huh. Okay, no, so there are a whole bunch of isomers of verbenone. You have to get the right isomer, we learned over the years. We started out with the wrong one and it did not work. So if it has the right isomer, I forget which isomer, it'll work, sure, yeah. Yeah, there's a question there about invasive verbatim. I don't even know. Yeah. Jamaican. Yeah. Oh. Again, if it has the right verb and an isomer, probably. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Rosemary only works with car 680.
That's really clever.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I got to thank Mark for something else. We have, I think, about 60,000 people on our Facebook page, and every time somebody says something about, well, can I use to spray this or this on that? And I don't know, but Mark, I just tag Mark, and he always answers. So he's a really good sport for helping us out on the page.